So it's time to pay a little more attention to my 72 F-100, who is known as Greenie. I haven't seen him here too much on the channel. I've referred to him a little bit here and there. For those of you who watch the Gimmick or Great, some of those parts, the ECI, you may be seen inside the engine bay of Greenie, but probably haven't seen much more than that. So few projects I need to get Greenie going. And, I mean, he runs and everything, but there's a few things that are keeping me from, daily driving, or at least getting some good entertainment out of him. So we're going to cover one of those things that I was wanting to get done. But first, I'll show you one other thing, and not in too much detail. I did put a new Holley Ultra 750 double pumper on it, and so far, just from initial startup, I haven't driven it yet, but it sounds really good. I think I'm going to be really happy with it. But as you know from the subject of the video, that's not what we're covering today. So what we are covering is that I've had drums all around on this pickup for a very long time, and I decided it's time to go with front disc brakes. And so I think that'll be a good thing. Some of you may have seen my video where I put some of the 17-inch Lightning wheels on it with wider tires, and for some reason I had a weird shimmy in the front end that hopefully was not the wheels. Hopefully it was something to do with the brakes, and while I'm thinking around there, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So I'm just gonna jump right in, and I already have one of the front tires off and jacked up, so I'm just gonna go to town and start putting this kit together. And before anybody gets after me too much, yes, I did put a jack stand underneath it. Got the first side apart. It actually didn't come apart too bad once I actually remembered how some of the stuff came apart. I had some real brain fart moments where I should be questioning my mechanical ability, and if that's the case, should I really be trusted to put different brakes on this thing? But fear not. We're going to plow ahead, and we're going to go ahead and start putting stuff together. I'll give you a free pro tip. So go ahead and get your container out for catching all your brake fluid, and then before you leave for the night, just go leave it in some other spot besides where it should be, so you leave a nice mess on the floor to catch all your brake fluid. So now, not only that, but I had tools in the area. I got a mess, just a mess. The good news is, I don't know if it's good news or not, there's no more left to really drain out of it. So we took care of that problem for the other side, for the most part. I guess another pro tip is leave your floor super, super dirty. So when you do stuff like this, you can go ahead and just sweep your dirt into there and absorb all your fluid. So stick with me for some more high quality pro tips. It clearly says in the instructions, disc brakes should only be installed by someone experienced and competent in the installation and maintenance of disc brakes. Well, since we don't know anybody like that, I guess it's left to me to go ahead and do it, but I bet we can figure it out. First part of the kit is now on. It's this caliper bracket that bolts right there to that spindle mounting plate, I'm going to call it for lack of a better term. And so I think one thing that's a little bit confusing is that typically when you see disc brakes, they're installed on the back side of the rotor. I'm going to call it the back side. And this is on the front side. So this is installed on the forward side, I guess, of your tire. So looks a little funny, but it works exactly the same way. So a relatively easy step, and now it's time to go to the next one. This hub/rotor assembly is no joke. Good grief, it was a heavy beast. I lifted it thinking how heavy it should be, and then it was way heavier than that. So as you can see, there's stud patterns there for 5 by 5.5 and 5 by 4.5, and so the wheel studs actually screw into this from the back side, and then of course Loctite helps to hold them in place. So that's what I'm going to do next, is go ahead and put those studs in there for my 5 by 5.5 pattern. Here's an actual pro tip, because the last one I gave you kind of sucked. So I need to thread those wheel studs through the back of this rotor and hub assembly. And of course, try to do it on the ground. It's not going to be tall enough and things like that. You're also supposed to torque them, I can't remember, 65, 75 foot-pounds. Something along those lines, and it's going to be really hard to hold that really little thing. So of course I had my tire off already. So I have it, of course, tire upside down. I have it sitting in there, and so I'll be able to thread those through the back side
And then because those lugs will be inside the wheel there, then I'll have the entire diameter of my wheel to help me as I torque them into position. So it should make this a ton easier. The next step was to go ahead and put that wheel bearing in there, and then I'll follow it up with that seal there. And so, you know the drill for wheel bearings. I did it the old school, put a blob of grease in your hand and then just, kind of rotate it around and push it into the palm of your hand to get grease in all the rollers. I do hate to admit it to everybody, but I did use rubber gloves so my hands didn't get all dirty. So, yep, I hate to admit it. I guess I'm probably not a real man, but that's how I did it this time. Plus, I wouldn't want to get all that grease all over my phone while I was videoing this. So, pretty intuitive, straightforward steps. Anybody that's ever done this sort of thing before. And so we're going to be putting that hub assembly and rotor on the spindle here real quick after we get this seal on. Okay, this is what it looks like now. I went ahead and got that seal in there. I'm here to tell you, I'm probably one of the worst seal installers there is. So first I start off, and it's always crucial that you find something, the right size. Put the seal in, and so I'm looking what would be the right diameter. And then I remember to actually have a seal driver kit. It's a heck of a deal when you start forgetting some of the things you actually have in your shop. So anyway, even the seal driver kit, I kind of moroned on it a little while and finally got it in there nice and flush like it should be. So should work. I made special care not to tear the rubber part of the seal, so we should be in good shape. And I think we're ready to slap this thing on the spindle. Just found out mistake number one. We talked about getting this bracket on here. Looked fine. Thought I matched the picture. Seemed like at the time it made sense to me it would be that way. Went ahead and slid that hub assembly, rotor assembly on there, and what happened is it won't go all the way back because it's going to hit this bracket. So as you can see, it kind of sits proud, which that should have been an indication to me that definitely not right. So I think I actually need the other bracket, because this needs to be the other direction, of course, which would set things behind this face, so it'd let that hub rotor all the way back. So you take this off, find the other bracket, make sure that it's facing back behind the face, put it back together. So a little bit of a time waste, but like all these projects, when you got two sides, I'll be a lot faster on the other side. Got my problem fixed. Once I put it back on there, it was pretty obvious that why in the heck did I put that other bracket on in the orientation I did? Boy, I have no idea, but this is how it should be, so it should all work a lot better now. Not much to see here. I went ahead and packed that outer bearing, got it put in there, washer, nut, set it up right. So there was no play, but no drag either. One of the things I noticed, see if we can show it. To me, that caliper bracket is awful close to that rotor. It's not touching it anywhere, and there's no reason it should at this point, but it's something I'll have to keep my eye on. So put everything together. It wouldn't take much for a bolt to stick through that just a little bit to get in that rotor. So we'll watch it and we'll see what happens. That's what it looks like with the caliper on there. Look at that sexy black 6-piston. Woo-wee! So this step here, you go ahead and they recommend you put 2 35,000 shims between the bolt and the caliper bracket. And really what they're looking for is they want you to try to get it centered up as best as you can. So I took a marker and I made a mark on that brass looking rod. Made sure it was in a repeatable position. Took my measuring tape. As far as I can tell, it's centered. I'm calling it centered. I could have probably done it without even checking, but I checked it, and if my measuring is anywhere accurate, which who knows if it is or not, I think we're gonna do it to it. So at this point, take the caliper back off, put the pads into the caliper. I'll go ahead and take some brake clean, and I'll clean that rotor really good, because I'm sure it maybe has some shipping oil or other contaminants or any of that sort of stuff. and then use some red Loctite and put it together. And so, after that step, it's putting the wheel on, I guess, making sure that everything rotates nice and free. And then, we'll have to put our brake hoses on it, and of course, bleeding and all that sort of stuff. So probably the next picture I take will probably be when we get to our brake hoses. I went ahead and assumed this is all going to work and thought I would run brake line before, got a tire in the way or anything like that. So I bought the universal kit that was recommended by Wilwood. They had 3 different lengths. I can't remember which one I bought, but I will put it in the description here of the video. But I did buy it, and so I worry when you buy universal type stuff, is it actually going to work or not? So they provide, let's get in here, they provide the fitting that goes into the caliper. So of course, we know that should match up. This is the fitting then that goes on the other end. And so I actually took that bracket off. That bracket has a square built on one side, is round on the other. And basically, if you file that square out and make it round, that piece supplied in the kit goes right up in there, and you can use the OEM bracket, and it just all connects in there. So I'm actually connected at this point. So basically, as far as this side goes, I'm gonna throw the tire on it. I'm gonna set it back down, and then at this point, I'm just gonna start on the other side. So unless I run into something weird, I'm not gonna bore you with the details of the other side. And the next time, well, not the next time, but when we catch up here in a bit, we'll have some impressions of actually driving it and see how well it works. There are a couple things I realized that we didn't really talk about in this video that's probably worth mentioning. So some people might be wondering, why did I pick Wilwood? And then others, maybe, what do I think of this kit so far? So there's a lot of different kits out there right now for these bump sides, and a lot of them are pretty price competitive. You can go fairly cheap. When I say fairly cheap, you can probably find a kit for, I don't know, high $600-700 some bucks, and then you can spend $2-3 grand if you want to. But definitely wasn't looking to spend on the high end side of things. So I was kind of looking to get, in my mind, the best bang for the buck. And Wilwood is definitely a known name out there. There's some of these other kits where I'm not necessarily sure where they're sourcing their parts from, how long are they going to last in the future, all that sort of stuff. Also, like some of these kits you see on the cheaper end of things are like a 2 piston caliper, where this Wilwood is a 6 piston caliper. So of course, more pistons is more stopping power. At the end of the day, because Wilwood was cost competitive, Wilwood is definitely one of the big names in the business. They've been around for a long time. I bet they're going to be around a long time in the future. That's what led me to go Wilwood. I thought I could get the best bang for the buck, best stopping power, and we'll see if that decision is worthwhile or not. As far as the kit seems to be top notch as far as I can tell. The instructions are good. Even though I screwed up that one bracket, I don't know if that was Wilwood's fault. I just didn't look at it all that close. Got it put together, but all the hardware came in nice packs. They were labeled good as far as whether it was wheel studs or whether it was caliper bolts or whether it was the bolt for the bracket that goes on the spindle. Let me back up. One more thing. The reason I chose this Wilwood kit, it uses the factory spindle. And so, there's part of me is like, do I want to go independent front suspension at some point? I was okay with the twin I-beam, to be honest with you. I didn't feel like tearing the front end apart to put a new spindle on and dink around with the kingpin bushings and that sort of stuff. So the fact that I could tear it right down to the factory spindle and then assemble from there, that was actually a big selling point. But getting back to the quality of the kit. So yes, everything looked good. Everything went together good. I wasn't fighting anything. Everything was as designed. Seems like it's a well thought out kit, and I'm pretty excited for next steps on it. So I got to get that other side put together. I have a portioning valve I need to put in the rear line because there's a drum brake still in the rear, so I got to be able to turn that down so they don't lock up before the fronts, and do some brake bleeding and different things like that.
And once again, next part of this video will be driving impressions and that sort of thing. But I'm pretty excited to have something that's going to brake good, go good, hopefully be low maintenance, and just work. One last thing we'll talk about before we go to test drive and that sort of thing. So
I think we mentioned earlier in the video, we need to have a proportioning valve in the rear brakes so that we can decrease the amount of line pressure to the rear. So you can try to synchronize it so that your front disc and your rear basically stop and lock up at the same time. So here, of course, on these bump sides, for those that know them, the front pot there is for the rear brakes. The back one, the big capacity part, reservoir, that's for the front brakes. You can see, hey, we got a line lock. It's a lot of fun. But we went ahead and installed our proportioning valve right here. I don't think it'll be a problem. It's not mounted to anything. It's floating in space, but it's pretty short connection there to the master cylinder. It's not super heavy. I think it'll probably work. Could you say that this is the best, most professional install you've ever seen? Well, probably not. But does it match the rest of this, and will it work? I think it will. So at this point, bleed some brakes, and then we're gonna have to go out and start doing some different test runs and bedding them in and all that sort of fun stuff. So stay tuned for that.